When someone says they love you but monitors your phone, tracks your location, and needs to know where you are every moment, is that love or control? When they claim they're protecting you while systematically isolating you from friends and family, is that care or manipulation? When they insist they know what's best for you while slowly erasing your ability to make your own decisions, is that devotion or domination? Most people have never learned the difference between love and control because they've never experienced genuine love. What they call love is actually a sophisticated form of emotional ownership, where one person's need to possess, manage, and direct another person gets disguised as caring, protection, and affection. They've been conditioned to accept control as the highest form of love and to mistake possessiveness for passion. Erich Fromm, one of the most penetrating psychologists of human relationships, spent his career exposing this fundamental confusion that destroys both individual freedom and authentic connection. He understood that what most people call love is actually a form of mutual imprisonment, where two people agree to limit each other's growth, autonomy, and authentic self-expression in exchange for the illusion of security and belonging. This isn't about obviously abusive relationships or extreme cases of manipulation. This is about the everyday, normalized ways that control masquerades as love in families, friendships, and romantic partnerships. The parent who loves you so much they can't let you make your own mistakes. The partner who cares about you so deeply they need to manage your choices. The friend who knows you so well they can't allow you to change or grow beyond their understanding of who you should be. Fromm saw that this confusion between love and control is one of the primary sources of human suffering, creating relationships that promise connection but deliver isolation, that offer security but produce anxiety, that claim to provide love but generate resentment. Understanding this distinction isn't just relationship advice. It's the key to psychological freedom and authentic human connection. Love, in its corrupted form, becomes a system of ownership where human beings are treated as objects to be possessed, controlled, and managed, rather than autonomous individuals to be respected, appreciated, and supported. This possessive approach to relationships is so normalized in our culture that most people cannot imagine what non-possessive affection would even look like. Erich Fromm distinguished between what he called mature love and immature attachment. Immature attachment is based on the need to merge with another person to escape the anxiety of individual existence. It promises to solve the fundamental human problem of separateness through fusion, possession, and control. But this merger always comes at the cost of individual identity, authentic expression, and psychological freedom. Consider how possessive attachment operates in romantic partnerships. "You're mine" becomes a romantic declaration rather than a statement of ownership. Jealousy gets reframed as evidence of deep caring rather than evidence of insecurity and control. The desire to know everything about your partner's inner world gets presented as intimacy rather than invasion. The need to influence every aspect of their choices gets disguised as looking out for their best interests. The person caught in possessive attachment genuinely believes they're acting from care and devotion. They convince themselves that their need to monitor, manage, and control their partner comes from love rather than from their own anxiety about loss, abandonment, or insignificance. They reframe their possessiveness as protection, their jealousy as passion, their control as guidance. Erich Fromm observed that possessive attachment is actually a form of mutual dependency where neither person can survive psychologically without the other. The controller needs someone to direct to feel important and secure. The controlled person learns to need someone to make their decisions to avoid the anxiety of autonomy. Both people become psychologically disabled by the relationship that promises to complete them. Watch how this dynamic unfolds in families. The parent who loves their child so much, they can't allow the child to face natural consequences, make age-appropriate mistakes, or develop independent judgment. The adult child who loves their aging parents so much, they take over all decision-making rather than supporting the parents' autonomy. The siblings who care about each other so deeply, they can't allow individual differences or separate life paths. What makes possessive attachment so insidious is how it uses the language of care to justify behavior that would be recognized as controlling in any other context. "I'm doing this because I love you" becomes the ultimate justification for boundary violations, decision override, and autonomy destruction. The person being controlled is made to feel guilty for resisting what's being framed as love and care. The tragedy of possessive attachment is how it destroys the very thing it claims to cherish. When you try to possess another person, you eliminate their capacity for authentic choice, which means their expressions of affection become meaningless. If someone cannot choose to leave, their choice to stay has no value. If someone cannot disagree with you, their agreement becomes worthless. If someone cannot be themselves authentically, the person you think you love doesn't actually exist. Fromm understood that possessive attachment is fundamentally based on fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of being insufficient to inspire genuine affection. This fear drives the need to control, because controlling someone feels like ensuring they won't leave. But control creates resentment, and resentment destroys love, which increases the fear, which increases the need for control. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating and self-defeating. Modern relationships often promise to solve the fundamental human challenge of separateness through complete emotional merger and fusion. But what they actually create is a psychological prison where two individuals lose their distinct identities and become a single, often dysfunctional unit that neither person can escape without feeling like they're dying. Karen Horney, whose work on neurotic relationships revealed the hidden dynamics of emotional codependency, understood that merged partnerships are built on the illusion that two incomplete people can fuse to create one complete person. Each partner outsources aspects of themselves to the other, creating a system where neither person can function independently because they've given away essential parts of their psychological equipment. The merged relationship typically involves one person becoming the feeling person, while the other becomes the thinking person. One partner handles all emotional expression, while the other manages all practical decisions. One person becomes the social connector, while the other becomes the hermit. One partner takes responsibility for all relationship maintenance, while the other focuses entirely on external achievements. This division of psychological labor feels efficient and complementary, but it actually disables both people. Watch how this operates in practice. The emotionally expressive partner cannot make logical decisions because they've outsourced their rational thinking to their partner. The practical partner cannot access their feelings because they've delegated all emotional processing to their partner. When conflicts arise, neither person has access to their full range of human capabilities because they've specialized in only half of the human experience. Karen Horney observed that merged relationships often feel intensely romantic and deeply connected in the early stages because the fusion temporarily relieves the anxiety of individual existence. Each person feels complete for the first time because they're accessing psychological functions through their partner that they've never developed in themselves. But this completion is illusory and ultimately limiting. The prison aspect of merged relationships becomes apparent when either person tries to reclaim the aspects of themselves they've outsourced to their partner. If the emotional partner tries to develop practical skills, the practical partner feels threatened and useless. If the thinking partner tries to explore their feelings, the feeling partner experiences it as abandonment and replacement. Growth in one person threatens the entire system because the relationship is built on mutual incompleteness. Consider how fusion dynamics operate beyond romantic partnerships. The parent and adult child who cannot make major decisions without consulting each other. The friendship where one person always plays the role of the crisis haver, while the other always plays the role of the rescuer. The work partnership where one person handles all client interaction while the other manages all technical work, and neither could function if the other left. These relationships feel essential and irreplaceable to the people involved because they literally cannot imagine functioning without their fused partner. They've become psychologically merged to the point where individual identity feels impossible. The thought of separation doesn't just feel like losing a relationship, it feels like losing half of themselves. Fromm recognized that merged relationships are actually a form of mutual emotional imprisonment disguised as intimacy. Both people become trapped in roles that limit their growth, development, and authentic self-expression. They mistake this limitation for love because it feels secure and necessary. But security based on mutual limitation is not love, it's shared dysfunction. Erich Fromm identified fundamental differences in how people approach relationships based on their character orientation. Those with what he called a productive character express affection as an overflow of their own aliveness, creativity, and authentic engagement with the world. Those with a market character treat relationships as transactions, commodities to be exchanged, or ways to increase their own value and security in the social marketplace. The productive character loves from abundance rather than need. They've developed their own interests, capabilities, and sense of self to the point where they can genuinely appreciate others without needing to possess, control, or merge with them. Their affection is an active expression of care, respect, responsibility, and knowledge directed toward another person's growth and well-being, rather than toward their own psychological completion. Consider how someone with a productive character approaches relationships. They're interested in understanding their partner as they actually are, rather than trying to mold them into what would be more convenient or comfortable. They support their partner's individual growth, even when that growth creates temporary distance or requires personal adaptation. They can disagree, set boundaries, and maintain their own identity while remaining loving and connected. The market character, by contrast, approaches relationships as a form of social and emotional investment. They calculate the value they bring to partnerships and expect equivalent returns. They view their partner as a reflection of their own worth and success. They express affection conditionally based on what the other person provides for them in terms of status, security, validation, or service to their needs. Erich Fromm observed that market character individuals often mistake the intensity of their need for the depth of their affection. Because they experience such strong anxiety when their partner is unavailable, independent, or different from their expectations, they interpret this anxiety as evidence of how much they care. But this intensity comes from dependency and fear rather than from genuine appreciation and warm feeling. Watch how market character relationships operate in practice. The person who expresses more affection toward their partner when that partner is successful, attractive, or admired by others, and less warmth when they're struggling, changing, or facing difficulties. The individual who measures their relationship's value by how it appears to others rather than by how it feels to the people actually in it. The partner who keeps detailed mental accounts of what they've given versus what they've received. In market character relationships, affection becomes conditional on performance, appearance, and utility. I love you really means I appreciate what you do for me, how you make me look, or how you serve my psychological needs. This creates enormous pressure on both people to maintain their market value rather than being authentic, vulnerable, or genuinely human with each other. The productive character understands that genuine affection is not something you fall into or something that happens to you. It's something you actively create through your own development and conscious choice. They take responsibility for becoming someone capable of healthy relationships rather than demanding that others fill their emotional voids or meet their psychological needs. This distinction reveals why many relationships that feel passionate and intense are actually based on market character dynamics rather than genuine affection. The passion comes from the anxiety of potentially losing access to what the other person provides, rather than from appreciation of who they actually are. The intensity comes from dependency rather than connection. Fromm noted that market character individuals often cannot tell the difference between being needed and being genuinely valued. They mistake someone's dependency on them for evidence of affection. They confuse their own neediness for depth of feeling. They interpret possessiveness and jealousy as proof of care, rather than recognizing these as symptoms of insecurity and control. Therapeutic insights identify 4 essential elements that distinguish genuine affection from its various counterfeits: care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. These elements, as outlined by Erich Fromm, work together to create relationships that support both individual growth and authentic connection, rather than the mutual limitation that characterizes most relationships people mistake for genuine intimacy. Care, in this framework, is active concern for the life and growth of the person you value. It's not anxious worrying or protective hovering, but genuine interest in their well-being, development, and flourishing as an individual. Care expresses itself through attention, support, and actions that serve the other person's authentic interests rather than your own comfort or security. True care requires distinguishing between what the other person actually needs and what you need them to need. The parent who genuinely cares for their child supports the child's developing independence, even when that independence creates temporary anxiety for the parent. The partner who truly cares encourages their loved one's growth, even when that growth requires personal adaptation or challenges the comfortable dynamics of the relationship. Responsibility, in the context of healthy relationships, means responding to the expressed and unexpressed needs of another person. But this response must be voluntary and chosen rather than compulsive or guilt-driven. Modern psychology emphasizes that responsibility in caring relationships is self-imposed and freely given, not demanded or extracted through manipulation, obligation, or emotional coercion. Responsibility also means taking ownership of your own emotional state, psychological needs, and relationship satisfaction rather than making your partner responsible for managing your inner world. You respond to their needs because you choose to, not because you need them to respond to yours in return. This voluntary nature of responsibility is what distinguishes caring attention from codependent caretaking. Respect involves seeing the other person as they actually are and supporting their individual path of development, even when that path differs from what you would choose for them or what would be most convenient for you. Respect means accepting that the person you value is a separate individual with their own mind, their own feelings, their own dreams, and their own right to make their own decisions, including decisions you disagree with. The absence of respect reveals itself in the subtle and not so subtle ways people try to change, improve, or manage their cherished ones. The parent who cannot respect their adult child's different values or life choices. The partner who constantly offers unsolicited advice or criticism disguised as helpfulness. The friend who cannot accept that someone they care about might grow in directions they don't understand or approve of. Knowledge, the fourth element, involves the ongoing effort to understand the other person as they actually are, rather than as you project them to be or need them to be. This knowledge is not invasive or possessive, but genuinely curious and respectful. It seeks to understand rather than to control, to appreciate complexity rather than to reduce the other person to simple categories or roles. James Hollis, whose work on individuation in relationships expanded on these insights, emphasized that knowledge in healthy relationships requires accepting the mystery of the other person rather than demanding complete transparency or predictability. You seek to know them better while acknowledging that they will always remain partly unknowable, always continue changing and growing beyond your current understanding. One of psychology's most profound insights is that many people actively choose control over genuine intimacy because freedom, both their own and others, creates anxiety that feels unbearable. The possibility of loss, rejection, change, or independence triggers such deep fear that they prefer the illusion of security that comes from controlling and being controlled. Rollo May, whose existential approach to psychology revealed the deep patterns of human avoidance, understood that the anxiety of existence, the uncertainty inherent in being alive, free, and ultimately responsible for your own choices, often drives people to surrender their autonomy in exchange for the false security of being managed by others or managing others themselves. Consider how this manifests in relationships. The person who stays in a controlling relationship because the control eliminates the anxiety of having to make their own decisions, even though it also eliminates their freedom and authentic self-expression. The individual who becomes controlling because managing others gives them the illusion that they can prevent loss, abandonment, or change. The escape from freedom operates through what psychologists call learned helplessness. The gradual conditioning that teaches people they cannot trust their own judgment, handle their own problems, or navigate life independently. This conditioning often begins in childhood, with well-meaning parents who solve problems before children can develop their own problem-solving abilities, make decisions before children can practice decision-making, and provide solutions before children can discover their own capabilities. Watch how this pattern perpetuates itself in adult relationships. The partner who gradually takes over more and more responsibilities because it's easier than teaching or waiting for the other person to handle things themselves. The friend who offers constant advice because they can't tolerate watching someone they care about struggle or make mistakes. The family member who intervenes in every crisis because they can't bear the anxiety of allowing natural consequences to occur. Rollo May observed that this escape from freedom creates what appears to be closeness, but is actually mutual enslavement. Neither person develops their full potential because one person becomes the decision maker while the other becomes the decision follower. The controller never learns to tolerate uncertainty and the unknown. The controlled person never develops confidence in their own capabilities and judgment. The most insidious aspect of this dynamic is how it gets justified as care, protection, and wisdom. I know what's best for you becomes the rationalization for overriding someone else's autonomy. I'm just trying to help becomes the excuse for creating dependency. I don't want you to get hurt becomes the reason for preventing someone from learning through experience. But this protection from freedom actually increases vulnerability rather than decreasing it. The person who has never been allowed to make their own mistakes never develops the resilience that comes from recovering from failure. The individual who has never practiced making decisions never builds the confidence that comes from experiencing the consequences of their choices. The person who has been shielded from difficulty never develops the strength that comes from overcoming challenges independently. The escape from freedom also prevents the development of genuine intimacy because it eliminates the possibility of authentic choice. When someone's affection is the result of conditioning, dependency, or fear rather than free choice, that affection lacks the meaning and depth that only comes from voluntary appreciation. You cannot truly know if someone values you if they have never been free to choose otherwise. Understanding this pattern reveals why so many relationships feel suffocating rather than nourishing, exhausting rather than energizing, limiting rather than expansive. When people escape from freedom through control and dependency, they create connections that promise security but deliver stagnation, that offer belonging but require the sacrifice of individual identity and growth. Genuine affection requires what might be called the art of letting go, the ability to care deeply for someone while allowing them the freedom to be themselves, make their own choices, and follow their own path, even when that path leads them away from you or in directions you wouldn't choose for them. Virginia Satir, whose groundbreaking work on family systems revealed the dynamics of healthy relationships, understood that the highest form of caring is the willingness to support another person's authentic development, even when that development challenges your own comfort, security, or preferences. This kind of affection trusts the other person's inner wisdom more than it trusts your own judgment about what they should do or become. Consider what non-possessive affection looks like in practice. The parent who supports their adult child's career choice, even when it's different from what they hoped for. The partner who encourages their loved one's friendships, even when those friendships require time and energy that could be spent on the relationship. The friend who celebrates someone's growth, even when that growth means they have less in common than they used to. Non-possessive affection requires developing what Satir called differentiation, the ability to maintain your own identity, values, and emotional state while remaining connected to others. This means you can care about someone's well-being without making their well-being your responsibility. You can want good things for them without needing to control how those good things happen. You can feel disappointed by their choices without feeling betrayed or abandoned. The practice of non-possessive affection begins with accepting the fundamental separateness of all human beings. Despite our connections, despite our relationships, despite our feelings for each other, we are ultimately separate individuals with our own inner worlds, our own paths, and our own destinies. This separateness is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be respected and honored. Watch how this acceptance changes the quality of your relationships. Instead of trying to merge with others or make them merge with you, you can appreciate the mystery and uniqueness of who they are. Instead of needing them to validate your choices or reflect your values, you can be curious about their different perspectives and experiences. Instead of feeling threatened by their independence, you can celebrate their autonomy as evidence of their strength and growth. Virginia Satir noted that non-possessive affection actually creates more intimacy rather than less because it's based on genuine appreciation rather than need or control. When someone knows they are free to be themselves with you, free to disagree with you, free to make choices you don't understand, they can offer you their authentic self rather than a performance designed to maintain your approval. This kind of relationship requires tremendous personal development because it demands that you find your security, identity, and meaning within yourself rather than through your connections to others. You must become someone who can tolerate uncertainty, appreciate diversity, and find fulfillment in your own growth and development, rather than in your ability to control or be controlled by others. The most challenging aspect of practicing non-possessive affection is learning to distinguish between your own emotions and the emotions of others. When someone you care about is struggling, you feel their pain, but you don't make their pain your responsibility to fix. When someone you value makes choices you disagree with, you feel concerned, but you don't make their choices your burden to control. This emotional differentiation allows you to be genuinely supportive rather than controlling. You can offer help without taking over. You can express concern without becoming intrusive. You can share your perspective without demanding agreement. You become a resource for others rather than a manager of their lives. The transformation from control-based relationships to conscious, authentic connections requires a fundamental shift in how you understand both yourself and others. This shift involves recognizing that every human being, including yourself, has an innate drive toward growth, healing, and authentic self-expression that doesn't need to be managed or directed by external forces. Carl Rogers, whose person-centered approach revolutionized psychology, understood that people have an inherent tendency towards psychological health and growth when they are provided with the right conditions: unconditional positive regard, empathy, and genuineness. These conditions cannot be created through control, but only through the conscious choice to see and support others as they truly are. The process of breaking free from control-based patterns begins with honest self-examination of your own motivations in relationships. Are you drawn to people who need you to feel important? Do you offer help as a way of creating dependency? Do you express concern as a way of influencing others' choices? Do you show affection conditionally based on whether people meet your expectations or serve your needs? This self-examination often reveals uncomfortable truths about how much of what you've called caring has actually been controlling. The revelation can be initially disturbing because it means acknowledging that some of your most cherished relationships have been built on mutual limitation rather than mutual growth. But this discomfort is the beginning of liberation for both you and the people you care about. Carl Rogers emphasized that genuine change in relationships requires what he called congruence, the alignment between your inner experience and your outer expression. This means being honest about your fears, needs, and limitations, rather than disguising them as care for others. It means acknowledging when you're trying to control someone and choosing to step back, rather than continuing to justify your interference. The practice of conscious choice in relationships involves developing new habits of response. Instead of automatically trying to solve others' problems, you learn to ask if they want your input. Instead of offering unsolicited advice, you practice listening without feeling responsible for providing solutions. Instead of trying to prevent others from making mistakes, you learn to trust their ability to learn from their own experiences. This shift requires developing tolerance for uncertainty and discomfort. When someone you care about is struggling, making choices you disagree with, or moving in directions that worry you, your instinct may be to intervene. But conscious choice means sitting with your own anxiety rather than trying to relieve it by controlling others. It means trusting the process of growth even when that process includes difficulty and mistakes. The rewards of this transformation are profound for everyone involved. When you stop trying to control others, you free up enormous amounts of energy that can be directed toward your own growth and development. When others feel truly free to be themselves around you, they can offer you genuine intimacy rather than performed compliance. When relationships are based on mutual choice rather than mutual need, they become sources of inspiration and support rather than obligation and burden. Breaking the chains of control also involves learning to receive genuine care from others. Many people who are trapped in control patterns don't know how to accept support that comes without strings attached. They've become so accustomed to transactional relationships that they don't trust affection that asks for nothing in return. Learning to receive freely given care is as important as learning to give it. The ultimate goal is to create relationships that serve the highest good of everyone involved. Relationships that support individual growth while fostering authentic connection. That honor personal autonomy while creating meaningful bonds. That allow for uncertainty and change while providing genuine care and support. The confusion between control and care runs so deep in human psychology that most people have never experienced what genuine affection actually feels like. They've spent their lives in relationships where concern was expressed through interference, where protection was offered through limitation, where connection was created through dependency. But genuine affection doesn't require you to diminish yourself or others. It doesn't need to control outcomes to feel secure. It doesn't have to possess to feel connected. Real care trusts the other person's capacity for growth, wisdom, and self-direction, even when that growth leads them in unexpected directions. The journey from control to conscious choice isn't easy because it requires giving up the illusion that you can ensure your emotional safety through managing others. It means accepting that relationship involves risk, that caring for someone means allowing them the freedom to leave, that supporting someone means trusting their judgment even when you disagree with their decisions. Yet this risk is what makes authentic affection meaningful. When someone chooses to be with you freely, their choice has value. When someone shares their authentic self with you voluntarily, their sharing becomes precious. When someone offers you care without expecting anything in return, their care becomes a gift rather than a transaction. The transformation from possessive attachment to conscious caring changes not only your relationships, but your entire experience of being human. Instead of seeing others as objects to be managed or sources of security to be maintained, you begin to see them as fellow travelers on the journey of growth and self-discovery. Instead of fearing their independence, you celebrate their autonomy as evidence of their strength and uniqueness. This shift reveals something profound about the nature of human connection. We are most capable of genuine intimacy when we are least dependent on it for our psychological survival. When you find your security within yourself, you can offer others your authentic presence. When you develop your own sense of meaning and purpose, you can appreciate others without needing them to complete you. The prison of emotional control can only be unlocked from the inside. No one can force you to stop controlling or being controlled. The choice to risk authentic relationship over safe limitation must be made consciously and repeatedly. Each time you choose trust over control, vulnerability over protection, you create space for genuine human connection to emerge. This is the paradox that lies at the heart of all healthy relationships. The willingness to lose someone is what makes it possible to truly have them. The acceptance of uncertainty is what creates the foundation for trust. The practice of letting go is what allows authentic closeness to develop. The world needs fewer people who confuse management with caring, and more people who understand the difference between possessive attachment and conscious choice. When you free yourself from the need to control others, you invite them to discover their own capacity for growth, wisdom, and authentic self-expression. When you stop demanding that others complete you, you give them permission to be whole themselves. True affection is an act of faith in the fundamental goodness and wisdom of human beings. It trusts that people, when given freedom and support, will generally move toward health, growth, and authentic connection. This faith isn't naive. It's based on understanding that control creates the very problems it attempts to solve, while freedom creates the conditions for genuine flourishing. Subscribe if you want to explore what becomes possible when entire communities and societies operate from this understanding. Because individual transformation is just the beginning. The real question is, what would the world look like if human beings stopped trying to control each other and started trusting each other's capacity for wisdom and growth? The answer is emerging in the lives of people who choose conscious relationship over unconscious attachment, and their example is quietly revolutionizing what it means to be human.